what comes to mind? Voter apathy, lack of sensitization, simply disinterest? Jack Tumwa, can you hear me? Could you unmute yourself? I need you to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, that does not surprise me, because I said that let's look at our history. When we got independence, the motivation was that we would get economic freedom, political freedom, and get social welfare so that people can grow up economically. That, in a way, did not go very far. We had a secondary change when we said we wanted to fight to change the political party so that we can have multi-parties. That was a motivation. The last motivation was when we said we wanted to change the constitution. If you ask me now what is the motivation for people to come up and register to vote, there is hardly any, because Wanjiku feels for all these 50-something years, he has been promised to be assisted by the political class, but hardly much has happened. So people are demotivated. The young people who are leaving school are out there, and they don't see any change coming up. The noise we are getting from politicians, starting from, we had this noise in 2013, we had this noise in 2017, now we are getting this noise for 2022. Is there any hope that really we are going to get the freedom, the promises that they are making? Is there any hope that they are going to keep them? It is not. So if there is low vote registration, it is because, in my view, the common man has been so demotivated that he doesn't see the need of coming out to register, which is extremely unfortunate.
But
I think we need, yeah.
But, I mean, that demotivation should be all the more reason why people should get out and register as voters to change the status quo.
I'll tell you, changing a driver of a car when a car is in tournament is not getting results. What we need to look at, and Wanjiku has to be taught this, we have to look at the entire political position, parties. We need to change the whole thing. In fact, in my view, if someone came out to campaign for Bombers 4 or Bombers 3, where Wanjiku, the religious organization, political parties should be given a rear part because they have let us down, so that we go and really look at the entire Kenyan situation. Why are we in this position that we make promises, we don't keep them? The country is going down economically. There is a very small class of Kenyans who are benefiting from the economic development. When we talk of our country growing at whatever economic percentage, who is benefiting? Wanjiku is getting poorer. The few, and the few is less than 1%, is getting richer and richer and richer every time. Don't ask me using what means. If they were working very hard to get rich, one would not mind. But using whatever means to get rich. Set the motivation, Wanjiku is seeing a politician as a person who is striving to get to that position, not to assist him or her, but to assist oneself. This is a very serious motivation, demotivation, and as I say, we really need to act on, I think it is Section 1 of the Constitution, where they say the sovereign right rests in the residents. The politician has let us down for a long time and is continuing to do that. I'm not seeing, personally, any change coming up in this country come 2022. There will be the same monkeys, the same forests, and immediately after voting, the poor man is going to continue suffering. Those who get into position are still going to continue getting their position. So, Wanjiku has to be given a role, and it can only be done by a national convention, the Bombers type, so that we can analyze what is killing us. Corruption is an evil in this country. Can you see anybody who has put up mechanism to fight corruption? And yet, in my view, one of the reasons why corruption continues is that we don't act on it as and when it is necessary. A person who steals a chicken at home is taken to court to 3 days in prison. A person who steals billions, the case takes forever. And by the time the case comes up, evidence is destroyed so that the case is thrown out. So there is some factors that the Mwananchi is analyzing and saying, no, I think this thing they call the rule of our government does not belong to them. It belongs to a few people who are in that position.
I don't know. I still believe that the more people register to vote, the more chances they have of changing the status quo. Listen, so we have a week to go on the mass voter registration exercise. The numbers are not encouraging at all. And there was a lot of focus actually on the youth. So from where you sit as a former commissioner, what should IEBC do to ensure that people get out and vote, IEBC, politicians? And of course, as you answer that, there's also the question of funding, because I remember IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati a couple of weeks ago saying, look, we're not getting as much funding as we would like. And that also rules out the prospect of a second mass voter registration exercise because of funding. What should we be doing right now as a country?
I'm not sure that even if IEBC was given money, I hear some people talking of requesting IEBC to have another voter registration in the course of next year.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that many more people will turn out. Anyway, let's accept one thing, that Kenyans like doing things at the last minute. Let's hope that perhaps during this last week, people are going to come up. I have got my doubts. IEBC, indeed, it has not done as much voter education as it would have been expected. Whose mistake of it is it? Is it the mistake of the government? They did not avail money in time, because we say election is a continuous process. Educating people, voter education should not come up at this last minute when people are registering. It should have been done throughout the 3-5 year cycle. Now it's coming in as late as now. I hope, and I can only hope, that it will catch a few more people. But I think this should send our political class to the drawing board. They should ask themselves why the people are not coming up to register so as to vote. I agree with you that indeed registering to vote is a very important thing. One gentleman called George Orwell of the Animal Farm wrote that people who elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but accomplices. Earlier on, as a scholar called Socrates wrote that the wise who refuse to rule should be prepared to suffer the rule of idiots. And even before then, Plato wrote and said, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. So I totally agree with you. There is every good reason for people to come up and register and vote.
Question is whether or not they will.
We have to be focusing. We have to have an objective. We are voting so that we can get something extra. If you have been voting for the last 50 years and the things are the same, what is the motivation? So yes, money can be provided to IEBC. IEBC can try to do voter education at the moment, but still I think the mood, and I say in the countryside, the mood is not as good as one would prefer to see.
Before I let you go, allow me to pick your mind on something that is rearing its ugly head again. Deputy President William Ruto was stoned just the other day. He's not the only one. Raila Odinga also got a taste of the same. And there's a concern about hate speech and political intolerance. You've had experience with this. What are your thoughts about it?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? And I can now hear you. You had disappeared.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I wanted to get your final thoughts on political intolerance and hate speech in the country. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i says the government will not tolerate political intolerance and hate speech coming from politicians. You've had experience with this, of course, being a former commissioner of ECK. What comes to mind with political intolerance and hate speech, even as we head towards 2022?
Hello? Hello?
Okay.
I
have to let you go. I have to let you go. I think your network has an issue. But all the same, thank you so much, Jack Tumwa, former commissioner, ECK.